episode of the UX Research Rundown, now in its fourth season. And my name is Henrik. I'm the CEO of Lookback and your host for this podcast. And if you listen to the first episode, you know that this season we are doing something a bit new. We are bringing Research Week to the people before it's actually happening. And we're inviting guests or speakers, organizers, people involved that you will have a chance to come see in San Francisco in June. I hope it is June. It's probably in June. Check the website. Don't trust me. And with me today, I have Christopher Monnier. I say that with an extra little French way because I'm up in Montreal, as you can see, with all the snow here. Look, it's a great pleasure to have you. You are a very senior IC, self-described, something like that. You're on an interesting journey, and you're just embarking on a new adventure that we can't talk too much about, but it sounds a lot of fun. So congratulations on that, and welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Awesome. So we always start same thing with the origin story of our guests. So, how would you describe your way into becoming a supervillain and no, I'm kidding, to becoming this person you now are in UXR?
Yeah. Okay. I'll go through the whole thing. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, which is not really a traditional path into UX research. I went to college at University of Minnesota from the Midwest, went to college at University of Minnesota, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and started working as a mechanical engineer at a medical device company because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just I don't know, my friend got this job, I should probably work there too. And I didn't really like it at all. It was very boring. My job for 6 months was looking at handwritten notes and comparing them to spreadsheets and correcting the errors. It was so boring. So maybe not the best example of mechanical engineering. Maybe if I would have had a cooler job, I would have stuck with it. But that was so boring that I was like, oh man, I got to do something else. At that company that I was at, there was an opening for a human factors engineer, within the company. And I sort of finagled my way into that role because I had just enough exposure to user experience, human factors, industrial design in college to know that could be interesting. And as soon as I started in that job, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than what I was doing. And so that was the big switch over to what led to doing UX research. But when I started as a human factors engineer, it was really more about design, physical user interface design. I designed some interfaces for medical devices that took 7 years and finally made their way to the market. But while doing that, I started to do usability testing. And for medical devices, it's all about safety and making sure people don't make really bad misinterpretations and that type of thing. And that was super interesting. I didn't even know that was a thing, but as soon as I did my first usability test, I was like, whoa, this is so cool to interview people. And so it was always in the background as part of my job. And then over time, that just became more and more interesting to me and how I wanted to spend more and more of my time. And then maybe another big pivotal moment was tagging along on some ethnographic research while I was at this company that we hired. We hired a consulting firm to do it, but I got to go along with them and do this in-home research in rural Arkansas. And it was oh my gosh, I was so excited to have the chance to do that. And after that, I was man, whatever, all I want to do is this research thing. The design stuff is fun, but doesn't excite me as much as the research stuff. So that put me down the path towards UX research. I'll stop there because then there's a lot of other stuff that happened after that. But that was sort of how I went from mechanical engineering person to UX researcher sort of person.
Awesome. Well, it's funny. We always do this segment in the beginning because when I talk to people just coming into the field, they're always like, oh, do I belong and all that stuff? And I say, well, I hear the craziest stories. And every time I have someone on, there's a new way in, mechanical engineering. First time I hear about it. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about this. So clearly love at first sight with UXR, it sounds like. Awesome. And you're actually going to talk... in UXR Week, you are going to be part of a I think it's one of those half days in the beginning of the week where it's a kind of a special track, and you'll be talking about kind of how to get into a career in UXR. Did I get that?
Yeah, no, that's
Is that
pretty good.
correct?
Like, yeah, the general, I still have to like do my talk. Like, I don't
Of
really
course,
know
yeah.
what it's going to be, but like the general outline is like this idea of like following your curiosity to like figure out what you
Hmm.
want to do, which sounds sort of obvious. It's sort of like follow your dreams type like career advice. But like specifically, I think it's interesting because I think there's I think a lot of the things that you do as a UX researcher, like listening to other people, listening to your own ideas, listening to thoughts, synthesizing what all these different signals into a set of recommendations. I think you can apply those to your career itself. So that's, I think, sort of
Hmm.
the gist of my talk. And I have like examples that I'm going to walk through that sort of are like key moments where it becomes really clear. Just like if you're doing research, like there might be certain interview moments, like right if you're interviewing someone where like
Hmm.
maybe it's always been simmering under the surface, some insight that's in your head, but then someone says something or they do something in an interview and it all just sort of clicks. I feel like I've had those moments in my career as well where I'm like I just sort of mentioned, like the ethnographic research that I tagged along on. Like
Yeah.
I was always like, oh, this is so cool. I love doing usability tests. It's sort of boring. It's sort of fun. But then when I did the ethnographic stuff, I was like, there was a specific moment I remember being being at this like trailer in rural Arkansas as we're pulling up, like we're driving a rented car, and it was like dark and we're like in the middle of nowhere, like literally there, it's not even like a little village, it was like a trailer in like the middle of a field. I
Mm.
was like, what is this gonna be? And you have all these stereotypes or whatever, and then we go in and it's this house, this like trailer, and two guys live there, and the reason they live there is because they were like sort of ostracized from the community because they were gay. And it was like every single stereotype I had on the drive into the place got
Yeah.
completely disrupted. And then the whole interview was just fascinating. It was all about like
Hmm.
heart disease and the medical device they were using for that. But there was so much more to it. And it was like just the richness of the story and the whole circumstance was like, oh my gosh, this is like every human is fascinating. All I want to do is
Hmm.
talk to people. So there's like moments in my career that I can think of like that just stand out. And I think it's very similar to like to doing research in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you tell that story, I think about it as, what's the whole point of doing research? Well, it is actually that you're encountering reality and you're challenging your stereotypes and all your, reality is much more fun than what you think it is. But it's like
Yeah.
anything can happen in reality,
Yeah.
And so, and that's like a great story, exemplifying that. So I tell me more about curiosity, because that's something that, I'm a father of two. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have this feeling that curiosity is something that should be encouraged.
Yeah.
When I see the people in my life that have been extremely successful at what they do, I'm not just talking about making money or something, but in whatever they take on, when someone is really good at something, it very often comes with this like very curious
Yeah.
attitude. Like, tell me more about, like, that seems to be the thing that you have focused on in your thinking here. Like, what is it to you, and like, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah. I think that's a good, I like this. I like tie in with success or whatever, because like that can obviously mean a lot of different things. But for me, curiosity is like it feels like the central animating force in like, at least
Hmm.
with respect to work, that like, like some people like want to they're like really motivated to build something, and they don't even care exactly what it is. They want to start a company, right? And they might start many different
Hmm.
companies, but they just want to build something. Or other people want to, I don't know, create like art or sing or dance, like whatever. There's certain like things that just drive you, and for me it's like understanding, or like just wanting to figure things out, like when things don't make sense or when I don't understand things or when I'm something is new to me. I just have this like thirst for
Hmm.
understanding it. And so for me, that's how I think of curiosity. It's like the thing that like above all else, like of all the things you can do, like in any job, there's like all these like things you can do, but it's always like the understanding bit has always been like the thing that I get most excited about, like whether even if it's like homework in school or
Hmm.
like when I was a mechanical engineer, there was still like this element of like trying to understand and make mental models of like how people would use systems and all that stuff. So that was like I don't know, for me that was like the thing that like once I realized that was like the thing that got me most excited, that's I think it wasn't like a conscious decision or whatever, but it was like now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that's what was clicking for me when I decided to go down the path of UX research. Was I just love understanding things, and like above all else, it's like at the top of my like things you can do at work. That was at the top. And so yeah, that's how I've sort of thought of curiosity.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, it's almost like I don't know if this resonates with you, but it's kind of like and you see it definitely like in children and like, you know, people before they have been ruined by, you know, society and education and parenting and everything. It's like it's really it's like the what's the word, like it's kind of like the force that pushes you into who you really are, because we're all curious about different things, right? And it's like it can be embarrassing to be curious about something, or it's like, or it can be the wrong thing to be curious about. It's like, oh, stop asking so many questions and stuff like that. It's really easy to discourage like curiosity, but it seems to be such a core thing for you know, who we are in our own weird ways, you know. So it's
I think
super powerful.
As I have 2 kids as well, and so like it's, I mean, that's my favorite part of being a parent. I just love it. It's like the best thing ever. But like is seeing I just love when your kids get like excited or curious or passionate, whatever it is, about like a thing, and then like figure, and they become sort of obsessed with it, even if it's just for like a day. It's the coolest thing to see them open up to the, like, try to understand things. And yeah, I think it's very precious, like curiosity, right? Like with my kids, of course, I never want to make them feel like, I don't know, like, oh, that was a dumb question, right? You want to indulge your curiosity, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, I try to like foster it and nurture it as much as I can, because I think it's, I mean, obviously I'm like biased. I love curiosity, but like, I think just as a child, it's like such a neat experience to go through, where like, there's a point where you don't know, you're not aware of something. You're not even aware of it, much less understand it. And then you become aware of it, and then you understand it. And then I don't know, hopefully you can continue that through life. But like as a kid, it's like, you like when you start as a baby, you literally know nothing. You're not aware of anything. So everything is curiosity. So yeah,
no, I love it. It's sometimes it's we kind of forget when we make frameworks and models and we talk about stuff. It's like, yeah, you know, you just follow your curiosity about stuff, and you know, if you're in the right career, you're going to have success, because you're just going to like, your focus is going to end up on the right things. But you know, thinking about this in your career as an adult, you know, I imagine that you've encountered places that were, you know, varying degrees of good in or bad in like encouraging or discouraging curiosity. Is this something at all that kind of goes, I don't want to, you don't have to do your talk here, but I'd be very curious to know like kind of what you've observed in terms of like company culture and team dynamic and everything that can kind of either encourage this or not, you know?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like, I mean, that's probably the case that like maybe certain organizations like foster curiosity more than, or like cherish curiosity more than others. Like, I mean, I worked at Airbnb for a long time, and that was like, I think it was very like curious, friendly environment. Like, but I actually think it's for me, like if I think about like whenever I've changed jobs or like made a zig or zag in my career path, it's usually when like there's a time when my curiosity lines up perfectly with like the company's curiosity, if that makes sense. Like the things that they care about, I'm like, that's what I care about. That's what I'm curious about. And then maybe like I understand everything I need to understand about the thing, and the company's still focused on that. Like that's sort of, I think, how it was for me at Airbnb, where I was like, it was just so fascinating. Like this new way of traveling. I was always working on the guest side of things. So like, what's it like to stay in an Airbnb? And so, I mean, it was so cool to like, to see people, to talk to people who didn't even know what Airbnb was, and then understand, and then see how they understood and made sense of Airbnb. And like, just understanding the sort of the mental model that like first time guests and then like repeat guests have. And after a while, I guess maybe I like became less curious about that, because I felt like I understood it. But like, obviously Airbnb still cares about that. Like, so like, then it was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should work on some other topic or chase some other curiosity. And so anyway, it's like, for me, I feel like there's like these moments where like it aligns really well. And that could be like a year, or it could be like 20 years, you know, it just sort of depends. And I don't know, you can't really control what you're curious about. Like that's the nature of curiosity, right? It just sort of sneaks up from you. So I think that's why it's like important to pay attention to that. Like, and like, just sort of like and they can go in and out of alignment, right? It's not like, oh, I had a boring day at work today, therefore I must switch jobs. Like, I think it's more of like, okay, it's been like a couple months and it's just like, I'm not excited about the questions I'm working on or whatever. What else is there out there that might excite me? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So people that come to your talk are going to get some. Is it going to be like here are 5 things you can do to follow your curiosity better, or like what can we?
Yeah,
expect?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
I don't know.
Sure, yeah, we'll do that. I mean, I don't want to make it too like career advicey. Like, I'm sort of rolling my eyes because like, I don't know, like, whatever. Why should people listen to me? But I think it's more of like, I think maybe if there's a takeaway that I hope that people leave with, it's like this idea that like the things you do as a researcher, you can also apply to yourself as a career. And yeah, maybe there's some things I can articulate there to make it clear. I mean, I think just a quick anecdote, like there's a lot of people that I worked with specifically at Airbnb, but other like researchers that I've worked with at other times who have like gone on to become career coaches. And I don't know if it's just like a tech thing or like a researcher thing or maybe both, but like, it seems like, it just seems like that's a natural sort of like fit. So I sort of, we're all our own career coaches to some extent, right? Or at least we should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's something there, some synergy or whatever with researchers and career stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. So is it, because the question, of course, that pops up in my mind is like, it seems to me in my life, but look, I don't know anything about, I've never thought about this in some sort of like intellectual or scientific way, but it seems to me that not everyone are equally curious. You know, do you think that researchers are like more curious perhaps than others, or like a different type of curiosity, or?
I mean, who knows? Like, I would say like, yeah, probably more curious, like, because like, I don't know, like there's other jobs you could do in life. And like you sort of, if you're not, I think it's like a selection thing. Like if you're not curious, you probably aren't going to make it as a UX researcher, like, or you're just going to get so bored. It's just like busy work. Like, but I think to go back to something I said earlier, I think, you know, maybe everybody's like equally curious. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but like, it's like of the, like the stack of things that like, drive your interest. If curiosity is at the top, like I think for researchers, curiosity is sort of at the top, and for other people that like, I don't know, like the stereotypical like boring job of like an accountant. I'm sure there's great accountants who probably have really rich curiosities, but like just to pick on that job for a second, it's not to say that an accountant isn't curious. I'm sure there's a lot of curiosity in there, or whatever the job is, but maybe it's not at the top of the list, right? Whereas for researchers, or at least for me personally, I think it's at the top of the list. I think it's true for researchers more generally. There's other things I care about, of course, but like it's like this thing that I just rises to the top for me, and maybe that's true for other researchers. I'm guessing.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's just interesting. I never thought about it like that, but yeah. Cool. So, are there other things you want to bring to like to your talk, or is it going to be like very focused on this stuff, or like what's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's focused on this. I don't know, like I need to I need to find an interesting.
Putting you on the spot here.
I mean, I want to hopefully I have some stories that will be not just entertaining, but like relevant, or that can help people. I like to learn as like by example. So I'll in my talk, I'll just give some examples. Like I mentioned that one of like this ethnographic research that I was a part of. Like that was like a eureka moment type thing for me. So I think that's how I will tell my story, is like with these examples. Hopefully that helps people relate to like maybe particular moments in their career journey or in their life, their work life, that they can, I guess now that I think about it, like, I feel like that's maybe a good takeaway, is to think more intentionally about like these pivotal moments of like, you know, like when did you know you wanted to be a researcher, and when did you know you wanted to work at this company, or when did you know you wanted to quit this company? Like there's definitely like, I don't know how it actually works, but the way it seems to work is like there's like this simmer, and then it like crystallizes. You know what I mean? Whether it's for, and that's true for like like just if I'm trying to understand a given phenomenon, I'm interviewing users, by like maybe by like the fourth user, something starts to click, and then like by the eighth user, it's like, oh, I totally understand this. I think it's true for career stuff too. Is like you sort of get these signals in the back of your head, and then at some point, it like, I don't know, you have one particular experience, and you're like, oh, I definitely want to take my career in this direction. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. It makes me think. I've been talking in other seasons of this podcast, but it tends to come up in every talk, which I guess says something about my curiosities. But there is something about the researcher skill set, kind of the researcher tendencies, or like, areas of focus or curiosity that can be applied outside of the actual research job. Like, for example, with stakeholders, which is something that I just love the whole kind of stakeholder researcher dynamic. And we've been building a bunch of stuff in that, and I've been deep in the research on that. And I just find it endlessly interesting. But there's definitely something there where, like, if we simplify how researchers should relate to stakeholders in order to be successful and have impact and get a seat at the table and everything, it's, well, they should apply their research skills and research their stakeholders, just like, because they are the product for the stakeholders. So it's like, it's exactly the same thing. And when you talk to research leader, now you're kind of like, yeah, totally. People that have experienced this, it's like such an unlock. But there's a lot of people out there who haven't even started thinking about it this way. And I have a feeling that curiosity might be the same thing, where it's like, you're super curious about the thing you're researching, but then you might not have unlocked this power of like exploring your own curiosities and what they mean to your career, kind of in a more explicit way. So I don't know if that's something you've observed or in yourself or in others.
No, totally. Yeah, no, like I think it's a great analogy. Taking the skills, like there's the job itself, and it has certain skills with it, like UX research, like qualitative UX research, interviewing, whatever, and making recommendations. But yeah, you can totally apply that to stakeholders, and I want to come back to that because I have some thoughts there. But and I think you can also apply to your career, like, right, like I don't know, maybe this is like a meta thing for like people in general, is like, what do you do in your normal job? How can you apply it to other aspects of your like sort of the second order things, aspects of your job, like working with stakeholders, or like the job, the career itself? I'm sure, I'm like sort of anchored on this curiosity thing, but I'm sure there's other people who would bring up some other thing, and they're like, oh man, as an engineer, I'm really motivated by XYZ, and hey, that helps me do this other part of my job, and this helps me do this other thing in my career. So there's probably something interesting there. But the stakeholder thing, I think it's such a good point. Like, especially now with like all these new tools and the rise of AI in particular, and how it makes it. I think it's changing research a lot. I wrote a post on my Substack. I'll shamelessly plug
awesome. That. Yeah, absolutely.
Monnier.substack.com. We'll put a link in the show notes. No, I don't know. Maybe you do that. I don't know.
No, absolutely. You're giving your time to the podcast. You there are benefits.
No, but like I just wrote a post about this because I think there's like basically the idea is that there's like insights are increasingly achievable through AI, like, or at least a combination of humans and AI. But like, I don't think it's far off to think that you could just assign an AI agent to go do research and it'll come up with insights. Like, but the trick is like, if we assume insights exist, that doesn't mean the organization is going to like run with them, right? I think the more senior you get as a researcher, the more you realize is like, oh, that the trick is like getting the right insights in front of the right people at the right time, and sometimes it takes like 5 or 6 times before you drive the change that you need to drive. And so much of that is like understanding stakeholders and applying that research like toolkit to that world. Other people have written a ton about this. Judd, Antin, who I used to work for / with at Airbnb, he did a great webinar with Carol Rossi. I'm not sure you say your name.
Yeah, no, I know which one you're talking about.
That was really good, and it was like how to be like a high impact researcher or something like that. And what I loved about that is sort of they had this like breakdown of like how you should spend your time as a researcher, and I think it was like 40% or less than 50% was like doing research, and the rest of it was like, I don't know, some flavor of like managing stakeholders, like figuring out how to get the insights to like have an impact. And I think that's totally true, especially as AI, if you fast forward like 3 years or 1 year from now, There might be, maybe you spend even less time doing the research because AI is doing the research, and you're spending most of your time like translating the insights into the relevant sort of, business strategies.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, now I get to plug some stuff that we're working on as well. But this is not the
Oh,
purpose,
all right.
but we recently launched, like, this is my new baby feature at Lookback is kind of a stakeholder flow where we built it because, well, first of all, it's always been obvious in the research we've done that, like, stakeholder management is actually like perhaps the most important part of success later in and impact. It's like it's the number in the first couple of seasons of this podcast. We talked about, like, how do you get your team along on this journey that is research, and I talked to a lot of very smart research leaders who've had like very good careers and have had a lot of success, and they describe this moment where you go from, first of all, I'm trying to build, like, I'm trying to get people interested in what I'm doing. I'm trying to get resources. I'm trying to get a seat at the table, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, when they figure it out with the stakeholders, all of a sudden they're like, well, now I'm drowned in like research requests and I can't like, it's just that switch,
Yeah.
But for us, it was kind of like, so I always wanted to do something like that. But it was when we started building out the AI stuff that we realized that, hey, all this kind of summarize the insights and tell us what this means.
Yeah.
It's like, it just can't do it if it doesn't know what people are actually interested in, because research can mean so many things. It's like you have to, and if you think about how you guys do research, it's like you figure out what the stakeholders are interested in. They're interested in a lot of things. Some of these things can never be researched.
Yep.
Some of them can, but perhaps not for this project. And then you pick a couple of these. And you do your research, and then you do the kind of there are some things that you weren't even looking for that you found, and then all of this stuff, right? But so what we did was we put stakeholder interviews in there. We let the AI look at those, create some goals together with a human, and then it uses those goals to surface insights from the research, right? And it gives that direct connection with like actually what the stakeholders were interested in. And the quality of the insight generation and kind of just like the AI figuring out what the research means, it's just like whoop.
Oh, sure.
So it's a funny thing. Yeah.
No, I love this. It's such a great product idea. I'm sure it's a great product. And I think there's, because I actually sort of touched on this a little bit in the post I wrote, but like I think there's like the problem with like, so AIs are LLMs, whatever AI systems are great at like anything that's like documented or written down or even like visually represented, right? It can ingest that and it can synthesize really well, like, right? So you could put in your quarterly planner, your stakeholder interviews, whatever, and then mash that up with insights from the interviews you've done or the AI interviews that have happened, whatever, and it'll spit out probably some really good stuff, especially, and the more context you give it, the better, right? The more relevant the insights will be. The thing I wonder about, and this is like sort of the punchline of my post, is like, what about the stuff that's not documented? Like, like all the like the intangible things like culture or like vibes or like the mood of the company, or like I don't know, was this a bad week for the I don't know, your main stakeholder, and they're like not ready to hear the thing you're wanting to hear. I think you solve some of that with the stakeholder interviews, right? You probably a lot of that, because a lot of that is probably not documented in like official documentation. But even then, there might be some stuff that's like not everything that matters is probably going to be documented. Anyway, so, and what to do with that? And my takeaway there is like, well, that's finally there's still one thing for humans to do, which is to like absorb all that other like non-documented context and then like synthesize it with everything else. And I think the more that we can like put into words to make it AI-able, like the better, because it just allows researchers to spend more of their time on these squishy things, which is what researchers are so good at, right? Like, so yeah, I'm excited for your product to come into.
This is great. I mean, I love. I think this has to do with curiosity and kind of like the curiosity about like how we can have impact with the research we do. I think that it's a lot about understanding being very curious about researchers, and that, as you mentioned, it has kind of like many. I've had to think about these things in almost like, I feel like when I studied philosophy, way back when at university, and I'm like, drinking red wine and like thinking about the ontology of all of this stuff. But it's like, you have all these layers of things, right? You have the stuff, what used to be mostly documented as context for the research were like the goals and the brief.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
a highly curated document. It's great because that's what you're going to like, you're interested
Right.
in that thing. But it's been negotiated, it's been filtered, it's been this thing, and then it meets reality. And reality is like, oh, whoa, we stumbled upon this thing,
Right.
and we did this thing. And then all of that stuff, it doesn't really have a place to go. It doesn't end up in the report. And
Yeah.
we saw this with the stuff that we documented, where it's like, oh my God, we have all of these things that people clearly think are interesting, but like they have nothing to do with what they set out to do. They just stumbled upon it. And like, how do we capture that, right? So, and part of that is like, how do you spread this thing out? Do people have, like, that's what's so great with stakeholders observing research, is that they can see these things that the researcher
Right.
would just miss or not prioritize.
Yeah.
But yet, when it comes to the documentation, like the more you just like document your interview, for example, you will also catch a bunch of things. You will capture stuff for the AI for context that would be curated away in kind of a brief, right? It's there now. And
That's
you would also, it's product, as we all know, it isn't a democracy. It's like, a designer will be interested in one thing, and like a salesperson will be interested in another thing, and an engineer will be interested in something else. All of these things have equal value because they're working on different things, but often they can be like negotiated in this political game where it's like, we should focus on this.
Totally. Yeah.
And with this documentation that the AI can look at, we don't need to clean that up anymore. It can just be there. And we know that like, Chris is interested in this stuff. And then you can get that loop on a like highly, I was talking to Noam Seagull the other day. I don't know if you know who he is, but
I worked with him at Airbnb, of course. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Of course. Yeah. Everyone has worked with everyone. But he was saying that like, he's like, look, he loved, I think it was TikTok I think it was TikTok. And he's like, look, imagine if like your TikTok feed wouldn't be personalized to you. What if you would just see like what everyone is like if it would just be one feed? Would it be a completely useless product? Like you wouldn't want to see that. And research should be the same, like for stakeholders. It's like, why? I don't want to see the designer feed. I want to see the engineering feed. So
right.
So there's something there too. And that goes down to the curiosity of like, as a human, we need to be curious about like, hey, what drives this person's engagement with the research I'm doing?
Right. Yeah,
you need to understand that at a personal level. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Like, I think it's such a good point. This idea of like curation, like a research brief, curating away like all this important context, right? Because it's not what the researcher makes the brief, right? And maybe they get feedback from other people, but like there's so much that's not going to be captured in there. And I think another post I've written about is like this idea of like scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. I think we're in this like era of like UX research abundance or whatever, or just general like abundance with respect to AI, right? Because like there's no need, like as you said, maybe it's nice to have a brief as a TLDR, sort of like, hey, what is this research even about? But like, there's no need to like, there's no limit on like the number of Google Docs you can have or that you can put into an AI, right? It's almost like infinite. So like, why not put in the context of, I don't know, the conversation you have with an engineer or the engineering roadmap or the whatever design vision deck that they made? Like, why not put that all in there? Like, I'm sure there's like things to figure out with that, but like, there's no limit on this amount of context we feed the system, the AI system or whatever. So I think there's something really interesting there to tap into the stakeholders, that whole like side of the equation, which is like historically was probably never even given enough weight just by the researchers themselves. But now it's like, so not only do researchers have to pay more attention to that, but also like there's a great opportunity to fold all that context into, whatever the system is, it's going to like help people come up with like, the right insights.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, I was quite surprised to see when we did the research that there was like, I was like, some tool must have dealt with this part of the flow, but it seems like not really. Everyone is just using a big mishmash of like spreadsheets and
that's a great
video files and Slack notes.
Right.
Oh, awesome. Cool. What are some other things that are going on in the, I've interrogated you enough about the speech that you haven't written yet, but that will clearly be very interesting, and everyone should go to Research Week and watch this or join online. But what are some of the other things like in the I don't want to say in the news, let's not talk about that, but like in the in our industry now that you think
Yeah.
are important things to think about?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I definitely think AI. There's just so much interesting stuff happening with AI. Like, um, so we could talk about that forever. I think. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of AI moderated interviews. Like, I've done a bunch of them. To me, like, that is, again, it's like it's not like an either or. It's not like, oh, AI moderated interviews versus human interview. I think there's such a nice balance there, or like 1 + 1 = 2 type thing. The way I think of it is like if I were like the modal like UX research task, if I were given it, somebody said go do research on this, my starting point would be, okay, I'm going to interview like, I don't know, 10 people or whatever, and I'm going to do AI moderated interviews for like 30 people or 50 or 100 people, whatever the right number is, depending on the complexity of the ask. But like I would always want to do both, because the interviews I do myself give me this like intuition, this like sense of like where to look, which I think is like a curiosity tie in there too, feeding that curiosity and then giving you like a sort of a sense of where the interesting stuff is, so that you can formulate the AI moderated interview questions appropriately, and also know where to look when you're using whatever LLM, ChatGPT you're using to analyze those AI moderated interviews. You sort of have to know where to look. You have to write the prompts. So I think there's just I feel like that is uh, almost like a, a one-way street. Like, why would you not, especially as the cost of all this stuff comes down, like, why would you not layer in like some AI augmented thing, whether it's AI moderated interviews, or it could be, I don't know, an AI analysis of customer feedback that you have, or like if you have just a bunch of open ends for a regular survey, well, why not just throw that into an LLM and have it come up with themes?
Yeah.
Oh, one thing that I think is really interesting is I tried this a little bit at the startup that I was at. A place called Woven. It doesn't exist anymore, but like it was a AI travel startup, and one of the things we did was we wanted to understand how people were organizing their trips. So we collected like spreadsheets or like notes documents or like Notion docs, whatever people were using, and then we had an AI moderated interview where we asked people to talk about the document, and that was good, and we came up with themes. But what was really interesting, and I want to take this further, is like I think I got pretty far with like 12 interviews and that seems really small, at coming up with personas for like the people we interviewed. I feel like that's like a whole new way to do personas, is or segmentation more officially. Like sort of the old way of doing it is you have these very official sort of technical, quantitatively difficult surveys that sort of sort people into the right boxes, and it's a really time consuming process. I feel like, and I'm not sure, but I have this hunch that you could do almost as good with just having a lot of interviews, AI moderated interviews, and then having an LLM, like a couple rounds of prompting, figure out what the personas are, what the clusters are. It's a totally different way to do it. So I think that's like, I don't know, one example of like how AI is sort of going to end up changing how we do a lot of UX research.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I think it's so interesting that like in every single aspect of the traditional workflows, whether it's like doing personas or doing like AI moderated or whatever, there's so many areas to just save time and do this with AI. And it's like, yes, it's a very new technology, but it's also a little bit like, we used to transcribe interviews by hand. Now that's done, right? When you're
Right.
saying like AI moderated, I'm thinking a lot about that as like, well, that's just a new unmoderated. You would always do this. You would do a couple of
Yeah.
interviews and then you would run like a
Right.
huge unmoderated thing on it, right? But now
Right.
you can just do that with a high quality. So instead of sending a survey, you just like let the AI do it. So I think in this sense, the future is very bright because it just increases the power of each and every UX researcher. If we
Yeah.
figure out um, how to add the human competitive advantage in that, like what is it actually we're so that's something to be curious about. That's just for everyone listening. I think just thinking about like what am I actually uniquely contributing here, um, to this thing, because if we figure that out, all the rest is just like an exoskeleton that lets us like
Right.
do everything much faster, right? So
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, because like, if you go back like 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, like the job, like the busy work of a researcher was like it was a lot of like stuff that has been automated away, whether it's AI or just like regular tools. Like think of like the work of like recruiting people. Now that's like almost trivial. Like with user interviews, I love user interviews. I'm not a paid endorser, but I'll shout out for it. I like, it's just great, right? Like, like Calendly or like Google appointments for getting schedules. You can run so much of it in a way that is so that the complexion of the job now, even like 2 years ago, before AI, before LLMs like became big, it was much different than it was like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? And then AI is like just going to supercharge that. So like, yeah, it's like existential question is like, what are humans good for? I think so. I already mentioned this idea of like this non-documented context and like absorbing that like a sponge, like working with stakeholders or understanding the broader, like, I don't know, competitive marketplace. And some of that might be documented, but a lot of it's not. Like, I think there's something there. I think another, this is something I love doing, but another way human researchers can contribute to teams is energy. Like, I know I'm like sort of a high energy person, but energy, momentum, whatever you want to call it. Like, I've talked to other researchers about this too, where it's like, sometimes if you just showing like a video clip, which might be like, yeah, as a researcher, you might think, yeah, everybody already knows this. This isn't really that revelatory. But just showing a video clip, I don't know, on a regular basis, every day or once a week, or when the team is feeling a little low, can be like a huge jolt of momentum. So I think and it's sort of like, I guess it's like the other point, like sort of reading the room and like getting a sense of like, man, what does the team need now? What's going to give them more? What's going to inspire them to like remember why we're building this product? I think there's like a role for like the researcher as like the energizer or the momentum driver, whatever you want to call it, which sounds so like, I don't know, squishy. But
I love it.
I think it's important. Yeah.
I think it connects to curiosity. It's like we talked a lot about the importance of being curious as a researcher, obviously. I mean, it seems to be a pretty like, table stakes. You should be curious if you're a researcher. But I think it's fair to say that a good researcher will trigger curiosity in the product team as well. That goes way beyond the session. I've seen this so many times where it's like, we measure obviously like, when do we get engagement from non-researchers with the research material? And it's so obvious that this is like something that some person jumps into. Perhaps the first interaction will usually be like viewing a live research session or something like that. And then that does something that then like they want more, that's kind of like, and they're curious about it, so there's something about the energy of this kind of like reminding people who are not, because we're reminded all the time. I think about this when I'm demoing the product or something like that. Like, I'm reminded constantly of like, hey, what's the good thing about this stuff we're doing, that we're building? And I get reminded all the time because I meet people with real problems, like real people with real problems that, and we solve those problems, and I can see that they're happy about it and everything. But my team is working on it. Like, they don't see that all the time. And I think a researcher has that kind of like energizing motivator, like locker room speech kind of, I don't know, here's a highlight reel, guys,
I love this idea of like sort of activating curiosity among the rest of the team. Cause like as a researcher, you almost maybe take it for granted. Like, of course I'm curious. And even if it's like the 20th interview on a topic, you still, I don't know, you don't lose the curiosity, or you might lose it until you start talking to someone. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's unique and interesting. I can't wait to talk. But like, yeah, the rest of the team, of course, has that curiosity. Maybe it's a little like latent or whatever. It just needs to be activated. And I think maybe that's what's going on when you show a video clip or share a story. It can even just be a story. Oh, I talked to this user this morning in XYZ. Like, I think it like, for people whose curiosity isn't like constantly at the forefront, like a researcher, it's nice because it like brings it to the forefront even just for like an hour or two, and sort of is a nice like, jolt that we, I think, as researchers might take for granted and forget that like not everybody is constantly living in the minds of the users, right? And it's, if anything, I think we under communicate in general, researchers, because we think the only thing worth communicating is like this is me maybe at least, the only thing worth communicating is some breakthrough insight, something that's really going to blow people's minds. And it's like, no, like that's such a high bar. Like the bar should just be like, here's a user getting excited about a problem or a solution. Like, it's a 15-second clip. Like, and that can be really beneficial. So like, I just think we should do more of that type of thing. And I think that's a role we can play as researchers, is like this energizer sort of momentum thing.
I totally agree. Awesome. Now we have reached that point in the podcast where, I don't know how you feel about it, but this was great. I want to keep talking about this forever. But we are going to start rounding this off. So what are some of the, we've had this discussion now. It's the first time you and I talk live. It's been great to have this conversation. I definitely learned a lot. What are some of the kind of new curiosities that this conversation has awakened in you potentially?
I mean, definitely like the stakeholder topic that we've been talking about, and like the product idea that you mentioned. I don't know if that's live in Lookback or when that's going to be, but like
it is.
It is. Okay, great. Like that. That is something I am definitely going to think more about. Is like how to, I think, how to take that context that is out there and like how to put it into words. One easy way. An easy way to do that is just an interview with a transcript, and now you have it into words, right? It still doesn't capture everything. Of course, you're never going to capture everything, but I think that's definitely something that I hadn't thought about that as a mechanism for textifying these intangible factors, and that like chips away at it for sure. I think that's a really good, it seems like going forward, like it used to be that like, just the act of doing an interview was like so much work, right? And it's still a lot of work, but like you don't have to do all the interviews now. AI can do some of them, you can do some of them, and maybe part of the time that you would have devoted to whatever research busy work, now you can devote to doing more stakeholder interviews. Like I have this mental model, which I think is a little antiquated, of like, oh, like I'll do stakeholder interviews for like a big project, or like when I first start on the team, like, and it's like a one-off thing, or like once a year maybe, but like, I don't know. And it doesn't have to be like a 45-minute session. It can be like a 10-minute, whatever, or a 5-minute thing, or just a Slack conversation, right? But like finding ways to absorb what stakeholders are talking about or what is occupying them. As Judd likes to say, like what's keeping them up at night. I think first understanding that, but then like folding it into the synthesis process, putting it into the LLM that's going to analyze all your interview transcripts. Like, why not do that? And why not do that on a more regular basis and not make it like this? It rather than being the exception, it's just the rule. Like that's part of like a research project, is like, I'm going to talk to, even though I talk to this designer every day or whatever, I'm going to specifically ask them, for 10 minutes, like, what do you want to get out of this research or whatever? And then put that in there. I think one thing I want to think more about is like, what is a good stakeholder interview? Like I thought a lot about how to do good research interviews. I feel like I could do it. Like you could give me a topic right now and I could interview anybody about anything for 30 minutes and I could do a pretty good job. But I don't know, with stakeholders, I'm sure I could do a decent job, but like, I don't know what that looks like. And I definitely want to like learn more about like what a great, how to do that well. Cause I feel like that's just going to become more and more important over time.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. That came out in our research, actually, when I talked to some people about how it felt to do, like, they hadn't really thought of it, like kind of what you're expressing. They'd done it, but they hadn't really thought about it as kind of a research thing. And even like the goal, the way they were thinking about goals, when it started, like when the AI started like creating findings for the goals, and some of them were pretty close, they were like, like I probably could do a better job, like in writing the goals and making them more distinct and stuff like that. And it's like, it kind of, but like that's something that applies whether you use an AI or not. So it's I'm happy to hear that that's what it's triggering. But awesome. On that note, now let's spend some time plugging some things here. You can definitely plug some stuff here, and even other great products. I mean, I heard you praise User Interviews. We recently integrated with them, and we did a lot of work like figuring out who's the best. And I think we can say that they're the best. So love to User Interviews. You have your was it a Substack that you have?
Substack, yep. chrismonnier.substack.com.
Perfect.
I try to update it like once a week, or maybe once every other week, or sometimes twice a week, or maybe once a month. I don't know. It's free, so it's good though.
There you go. Awesome, cool. And of course, to see you in person, come down to San Francisco for Research Week.
Yeah, please.
Awesome.
Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, I guess. I don't know. I don't really have. Feel free to like reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can just look me up.
Perfect.
My name is. Yeah. Cool.
Great. Well, hey, thank you so much. Thanks everyone who has been listening. See you next time. And until then, happy researching. Bye-bye.
Bye.